once people learn about bees and kind of there's a service, like I would be more apt to have a few hives if I knew there was a service that would take care of everything for me.
Yep. And then that's where it can become a trade, I think, is when you become the one just offering these service the backyard.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tradepreneur Show. Your host, Patrick Summers. I have a really special guest with me today. Somebody that is very meaningful to me. I love very much. We've also fought very much through the years, especially when we were younger. My brother, Peter Summers. Welcome to the Tradepreneur Show.
Glad to be here.
All right. Glad to have you here. I've talked about bringing him on since I started the podcast. We've been having conversations around it. And I will tell you, the reason being is he has a unique career. And when I would talk to him and when I would learn more about it, I'm like, it's a trade, and on the Tradepreneur Show, we're heavily focused on, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, roofing, welding, those type of carpentry, traditional trades that one would think of when they say they're in the trades. When I started the podcast, the whole concept was the trades, there's so much more in the trades, anything outside of college almost that you can learn through maybe a technical school, a certification program, or on-the-job training or mentoring, to me is a trade. And so I would think of cosmetology. My daughter became an esthetician. To me, that's a trade, not in the traditional sense that we think of them. Well, my brother happens to be a beekeeper, which has something I've become fascinated with is the world of beekeeping. And I'll let him tell you more about it, but I guess just start telling us, like, how did you get into beekeeping?
I got into beekeeping because I owned a honey shop, and it was a new shop in the city of Salt Lake. And many of my customers came in hoping to find a beekeeping supply shop because Salt Lake City and Utah in general has a lot of recreational beekeeping. Anyway, so because my customers were looking for beekeeping supplies, I took an interest in beekeeping. I actually had a customer who introduced me to beekeeping.
So what the interesting part there, when you think business, okay? So think if you're listening to this, you're driving around in your service truck, you're at the office, whatever it is, and you think business, right? Here is a perfect example of how we have to think about what we do, whether we're the technician in the field, a manager, or the business owner. Here is my brother who opens a store selling honey. And you were unaware of this other opportunity?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it.
So, and here he is, he actually has expanded his business and mostly moved into a totally different business from the opportunity that he discovered in one business. And I challenge you to think of the business you're in, whatever it is. What opportunities exist for product or service within your business that you may not even be aware of? Because you got into selling the honey. So real quick, how did you were you like, hey, you know what? I love honey. I want to sell honey.
No, it was more I needed something to do. I needed a job.
Because you had just moved to the new area?
I was new to Utah. We're in the beehive state.
So you're like, hey.
Well, I didn't see any honey shops. So it seemed like a place to start.
And then from that, a business, there was a need, I guess, right? For
beekeeping supply. And definitely there was a strong interest in that. And it became interesting to me.
Essentially, people were looking for answers. And they went to you thinking that you would have the answers?
Well, I mean, sometimes they would come into my shop and talk to me about what's happening in their hive and what they could do about it. So, and I mean, I didn't have any of that background at the time, but then I started to research and study and just became obsessive about it.
So how does one learn the actual hands-on part of the beekeeping? Because I mean, I know for me, actually until you, I was like, bees, most people swat, run, hide. And so I can't imagine that you just go and buy a bunch of bees on a beehive and all of a sudden you're out there handling bees.
Yeah. If you wanted to get into beekeeping and on any scale, I would say start in the backyard and have a couple hives just to see how you are about that, as you have their temperament to deal with. And
yeah, but you just don't, I mean, I can't imagine, I guess what I'm saying is okay, I would like to have some bees in the backyard after learning what I have from you. but I'm not going to be like, hey, send me a beehive and send me a box of bees. And what, I'm going to shake them out in there? Or?
But a lot of people do it that way though, that they just dive right in. And then there are others that like to be well prepared and will take classes. And then there's people like me that were fortunate enough to have a mentor. That would be the best way to go into it.
So I guess it would be like the trades in the sense that there are people that just kind of start self-study and just hands-on, do it and develop and learn that way, right? And then eventually have a mentor or somebody that trains them. And then there's people that go through a formal training program.
Yep, and they do have them, University of Montana and Cornell, and there's some pretty prominent.
And these are because there is a huge industry in commercial beekeeping.
Yeah, so you can actually get a formal education now.
Hold on, hang tight for this word. What is the beekeeper, the official scientific word?
Apiarist.
Who?
Apiarist.
Apiarist. Say that 5 times fast. So an apiarist is the technical term for somebody that manages bees.
I don't know if that's a technical term or the classic term, or I don't know what kind of term.
But I understand why you call yourself beekeeper. It's much simpler.
Yeah, but beekeeper is not even a good one, I don't think.
So what I've learned going out on hive inspections and stuff with you is I think the word beekeeper doesn't give the profession the respect that is needed.
Or the bee, the respect.
Yeah,
that is needed.
Got to respect the bee.
Well, yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
So now I go out on inspections with him, right? And we do these hive inspections when I go visit him. And I'm fascinated by it. I didn't give it much thought. And I notice each time I'm there, I allow myself to get a little bit closer to the beehive.
Yeah.
But you actually get in there and you rarely wear the Gumby suit.
I'll at least start without it. So, I'll put it on because there's some colonies where you can't get away with that. But yeah, many of them you can. And to me, it just enhances the experience to have that vulnerability.
For you or the bee?
Well, I think it's makes it a little more even.
Well, I think, and you've said it to me, is with the gear on, you can tend to be a little more.
You'll develop bad habits.
Yeah, you're not as careful.
For sure.
Right? And without the gear, you move very slow, methodical.
You become a lot more aware of what you're doing.
It's interesting. When I was in firefighting, that was one of the challenges, was the technology for gear was advancing so much that, the one side, it was so much better protection for a firefighter. The flip side of that was firefighters were getting into scenarios they normally wouldn't because they could get closer to a fire, tolerate the heat more, stay longer. And so I remember this was a while ago, but that was one of the discussions back then. You get kind of, I don't want to say sloppy, but you develop bad habits.
You get complacent.
Yeah.
And if you really want to learn about a bee's behavior, which I think is one of the major benefits of beekeeping, is just that interaction. But if you're unprotected, you will definitely learn better what sets them off, what agitates them, and what doesn't.
Have we been stung before?
We've been stung. Yeah, that is the penalty. And it does make it more interesting, I think, the fact that that you will pay for your mistake. It kind of, I don't know. I do think that makes it.
Yeah, you've sent me pictures before where you look like a pumpkin.
Yeah,
swollen up.
Yeah. You have to be careful though. So I'm not advocating. I'm not saying that this is how you should keep bees. I think you should start with fully protecting yourself.
Yeah. So
and if you have any desire,
so let's be clear. He's like a experienced beekeeper. If you're somebody that's going to get into beekeeping, new to beekeeping, or probably a backyard hobbyist, I would fully endorse the suit. When I go out with you, I get close to the hives, but I'm not I do get right up to them depending on the hive. But I've been on some where those bees, they start darting at you and bouncing off your face.
And honestly, if it's a situation where I need to be efficient and get through several hives in some amount of time or whatever the case may be, I will throw a suit on because I know I'm going to be quicker. I'm going to be a little bit more sloppy, and I won't. So the not wearing the suit thing is more of it's just when you.
It's your personal approach.
Yeah. When you're opening the hive for a different reason.
Okay. So, and I've just always been fascinated by that because you see the bee suits and stuff, and obviously they're there for a reason, but you just had such a unique approach to it. Did you start with that approach or did you evolve into it?
No, that was part of the mentorship that I received. So I learned from somebody that also didn't typically wear protection except when it was totally necessary. And so I always appreciate that, that approach that was taught to me because I do think it makes for a better beekeeper.
And your company has one of the things it has is a contract with the county of Salt Lake.
Yes.
And what does that involve? Because people get their hives inspected.
Yeah, they want to, they can, because hives get sick. Disease is a problem. So, and the county has an interest in supporting honeybees and the health of their ecosystem and so forth. So they have this program where if you're a beekeeper and you have a problem in your hive and you suspect disease may be an issue or just need some help, you can call. I'll go out there and
because if the bees, because they do get sick, right? That's the one thing I learned is they're pretty. I don't know if fragile is the right word, but there's a lot, just like the human race deals with.
If you're putting communities close together like that, that's the risk. I mean, disease becomes more transmittable.
The one thing I think is really cool, because you're not a big commercial operator. Like there's commercial operations that do millions of dollars a year in revenue, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But here's something I found that was very interesting. I learned about honey because I've never been a fan of honey. Because I don't know. To me, it was too sugary and I didn't really have a flavor. But, I was drinking the stuff that came out of the bear off the shelf in the store or you'd have on your table or whatever. And what I learned, like when I sample the honey he has, or he sends me honey or I'm up there and I get some, it is delicious.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually brought with you to visit a hot honey that you made, which is absolutely amazing. But it turns out that it's a lot of the big commercial producers feed the bees.
And that's what they have to do a lot of times.
Well, yeah.
And they're the big payday for a commercial beekeeper is pollination, particularly almond pollination. They're raising bees in a different way with a different goal. So it's different than.
But my point is there is they have to produce a lot, so they have to feed the bees. But there is a distinct difference between honey that is pure from a flower or whatever.
And totally. And that's reflected in the fact that their priority is not producing honey. It's to whatever it takes to make a good pollinator hive. So that doesn't always result in what makes the highest quality honey.
So and I think what's really cool is, so us in the trades, we have residential and commercial contracts, memberships, agreements, things of that nature, where you're doing preventative maintenance, proactive visits to equipment, to homes, to businesses, to make sure everything's operating as it should, efficiently and safely. And your business model is very similar in that you basically, you can have a subscription service where you will come out regularly to maintain the hive.
Yes. Yeah, because I'm not a commercial beekeeper. Like I don't have a bunch of hives and I don't do pollination. So I just wanted to clear that up. I do commercial beekeeping in the sense that I sell hives, I sell equipment, I teach classes, I provide management service for apiaries, I sell bees. So in that sense, any sorts of.
But like my business here, the general, right? We'll go out and we'll do a service, a maintenance, preventative maintenance on the air conditioning system. We'll check the plumbing, we'll check the electrical, we'll do a heating. Very similar in the sense that you can go out and do, like, at the beginning of the season, check the hive, make sure everything's right, and then through the season, and then even harvest the honey for a customer.
And this is the focus moving forward is
getting more into that,
into the service side of it, because there's a lot of people that want bees but don't want to be beekeepers. There's definitely a market for that.
So, and then you do have, it is like farming. You were saying bees are like agriculture. I mean, not agriculture, but livestock.
Again, I mean, it depends. It's not how I would think of a backyard hive, but definitely at the commercial level, they are livestock for the most part. But that's also unfortunate in a way. But it is what it is. I mean,
well, I mean, I guess it is. I mean, it's also, you know, I always say I have people that are vegans, right? Which, hey, if you're a vegan, look, everybody's got their cake. So if you're a vegan, so be it. I think we were designed to eat meat, and that's my belief. Your belief is different. Totally respect it. But here's what I always tell vegans. I'm like, listen, if we didn't eat beef, you know how many cows wouldn't get 18 glorious months of life? Because like we wouldn't need them.
And cows are eating hay, an alfalfa crop, in which bees are hired to pollinate. In fact, that's one of the primary sources of pollination revenue. So it's bees pollinating alfalfa so that they can feed cattle.
It's all tied together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all tied together, and it's an industry.
But honeybees add, you know, it's estimated somewhere around $15 billion to the value of crops that are produced in this country every year.
And so let's talk
just
about
because they increase yield and size and
you've got me on this
tonnage.
Like now we're trades. I'm trying to keep this tied into the trades, and he keeps taking me to science like I'm on the Discovery Channel. So you just said what you said, but it prompted the thought. Like there's this whole thing about a concern because we're losing bee populations. Is that a thing?
That was a thing, but it was never that. No, we're not losing bee populations, but we're also not gaining them. Losses average about 50% a year.
Okay.
So that's why. And then the colonies that are healthy, the other 50% that are healthy will multiply in the spring by swarming. So they'll become two colonies. So they're losing 50%, but they're also gaining it back in the same year.
But I thought there was like the bees were like endangered, and the mushroom guy, Paul.
Well, disease is definitely a problem. And that's fairly recent. I mean, disease has been a problem throughout the actually history of keeping bees.
What's making it more prevalent?
There's a mite. So there's a mite in the hive, and this is the same narrative that everyone's exhausted with, but it still remains the fact that there's a mite in the hive that's transferring or transmitting viruses, and that's
so one of the reasons to have your hive inspected and checked, because if you identify the mite, can you treat the mite?
Yeah, but that's also tricky, you know. So
yeah, I've been on a few of them with you.
You're trying to kill bugs on bugs, and what kills the mite also.
Well, it sounds almost like cancer treatment.
Yeah,
right. It's very targeted poisoning, and you got to give enough poison to kill the mite, but not kill the bee.
Right. Totally.
So
there's that.
To me, it's fascinating. The whole world of bees is fascinating. How it ties in, like when we talk, I just think about business. Like, man, I want to open a beekeeping service, go global, because I'm like, man, you could, once people learn about bees and kind of there's a service, like I would be more apt to have a few hives if I knew there was a service that would take care of everything for me. Because I don't have the time or the patience to do everything that has to be done, especially when it's time to harvest the honey, right? So like one of the things we're doing this year for a lot of our people we have relationship with, some of our clients and our vendors and so on and so forth, and we're putting together a little honey jar and stuff like that because it's so delicious. And I mean, it would be so cool to have beehives that were mine or the general's. And you could harvest them.
You could have them right out on this property here. You could have 3 of them sit on the back, and
that would be so cool. But here's the thing: I would want somebody to come maintain them, harvest the honey, do all of that. I don't want to do that, right? I like going out with you when I visit and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't have enough time to have it as a hobby, right? And I think there's probably a lot of people like that.
Yep, and then that's where it can become a trade. I think is when you become the one just offering these service the backyard.
And the bees kind of go into a hibernation during the winter.
They get semi-dormant,
okay,
and then they get active.
But they're not producing honey during the winter time?
Nope, flowers need to be blooming.
Yeah, so you do have a seasonal element to a lot like kind of if you're in HVAC, there's a seasonal element.
Yeah.
Right? So, but like farming has a seasonal element, right? However, when you're not planting the crop, maintaining the crop, and harvesting the crop, then that off time is the whole time that you're fixing tractors, doing everything you have to do to get ready for the spring planting, right?
Yeah.
Your business is very similar in that way.
Yeah. So there's those times of year when revenue is almost nothing, you know.
So then the question becomes like when you have that, so HVAC, how many times, if you're in HVAC, that's HVAC for the layperson. So if you're in HVAC and it's seasonal, right? Especially if you're in a climate like we are in Southern California, you would hear so often, oh, you know, you're going to make money, but there's going to be certain months you're going to lose money. Well, I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe in that. Why be in business if you're going to accept that certain months you're going to lose money? You might as well just close the operation down, right? So you have to find out how you're going to make money, how you're going to have the calls coming in, and what are you going to do during those times a year. And you have to become a really good operator to make that phone ring and drive demand when demand is non-existent. And I think you face the same scenario. So like I look at like if I was in that business, that's the time I'm building beehives and I'm having specials. I'm putting together kits that I'm going to sell online for people that want to, you know, right now, Christmas time. Hey, you got a beekeeper in your family? Get our starter kit or get our whatever kit now for the Christmas rush.
Yes.
And then you're shipping them out. Come online. Let me teach your course on this. So I really think it's like any business. You've got your ups and down times. Okay. So, but what do you do? How do you drive that revenue? How do you make it so you're always up? Now, you might not be as up when, like for us, when it's 120 degrees in the desert and air conditioners are breaking left and right. But how do we keep our business up here when it's 68 degrees and beautiful?
And that's part of the thing that's solved by doing the service contracts, because we can bring revenue in, fixed revenue through every month of the year.
Your business is very much like our business, the HVAC business, because when I go visit them, like there's a time of year you can travel and do things because there's not a lot going on. But then the springtime comes, the summertime comes, and you're like almost 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Out there in the community doing your stuff. And then is there the swarms? So he even has demand calls, you know, the emergency calls as we kind of refer to them. Oh, no hot water, power's out, the roof is leaking, whatever those things are that are driving that demand outside of maintenance. You have, and I think one of the biggest things is, and it's really cool, are the swarms, when bees swarm.
Yes, swarming is fascinating. So
Is that a period of time?
there's a season for that's their reproduction. So that's the colony reproducing.
And real quick, what's happening when they swarm?
It's one colony growing to the point where they're forced to divide.
So they're big. So the hive, they've outgrown the hive.
They've outgrown the hive. Yeah.
And so they go off to find, so they
Half of them leave. Yeah, half of them will leave.
Well, how does that happen if there's only one queen?
They'll start producing new queens before they divide. They'll start like a week ahead of time, and they'll start raising new queens. And just before those queens emerge is when the split happens.
And then, so what's happening there, see how good of a student I am, is the hive splitting. So half the hive goes off and they got to find a new hive.
Yeah. And they're also leaving with the queen. So she's leaving too.
So the new queen will stay with the old one.
Yeah. They'll hatch after these ones leave.
That makes sense because that's how everybody follows, right? Because they already know that queen.
Yeah.
Right. So then they go and now they're looking for a cavity or somewhere to put a hive.
Yep.
And so in the meantime, hang out in a tree together.
Yeah.
While like the foot soldiers are out looking for a place.
The scouts. Yeah. They send the scouts out.
And there you say, cause I was amazed. I'm like, how do you deal with a swarm? What do you do? And like, you'll just walk up to the tree with a box and shake the tree and they all fall in.
Yeah. They're in survival mode when they're swarming because they don't have a nest. So they're very vulnerable. So they're not looking for.
And then that's how the bees end up in like somebody's wall or something, right?
Yeah, that's often where they find.
That becomes their new hive.
Yes.
And so you would get called in to remove them. if they've already taken up residence somewhere.
Yeah, I do get those calls, but I actually don't do those.
Okay.
But if they're inside the structure, I don't. Just
Maybe
because
there's opportunity.
Yeah, there is because there's not really anyone to call for that either.
Yeah.
There are a few people.
I'm like, I'd be doing it. And then I'd be subbing out. I'd be saying, hey, do you want the drywall repair after this? Do you want the stucco work? I can include that in this quote, whatever. And then what do you do with the bees? Then you take them to like a bee farmer or something?
No, I take them to my backyard.
Okay. So
Put them in my own hive, usually.
So can I talk about a friend you have that's very successful in beekeeping who is supposed to cook me dinner?
Oh, yeah.
So I met this friend of his, amazing woman, Claudia, and her husband, awesome people. But you met her because she took one of your classes?
I met her because she was buying honey from me.
Okay.
So she was a honey customer and a very demanding one at that.
That surprises me about Miss Claudia.
Finder was like, why don't you get your own hive and make your own honey?
So she came to you and you met through that, and now she has a bunch of hives. Right? Yeah. She does real well with them, right?
She has like 7 hives.
Okay, that's a bunch of hives to me.
Yeah, especially they're very large hives.
Yeah, I've seen them. They're very impressive. Anyways, I just wanted to recognize her because her and her husband are cooking us dinner next time I come up. At least that's what you committed to. So, anyways, listen, we deviated a little bit here from like talking a typical Tradepreneur Show content, but I got to tell you, it's fascinating to me the whole beekeeping and the whole concept of business. It's business. Right. And it's a business very similar to ours. And when I talk to my brother, Peter, and I get up there and visit, I'm just like, man, there's such an opportunity here. And I just get super excited about it. And I thought, man, love to have you on the show. 1, because you're my brother. I love hanging out with you. But 2, I think that there's a lot to know about bees. There's a lot of opportunity with bees, and the business side of it, there's tremendous opportunity. And there's so many similarities between what I do and what you do. And in addition to that, it's a trade. It's a trade that somebody can get into. So before we wrap up, how can people find you if they want to learn more about your services, your classes?
BeezSLC.com.
Beez
with a Z.
With a Z. So BeezSLC.com. So Beez, Salt Lake City. So BeezSLC.com.
That's it.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, it just rolls right off the tongue there, doesn't it? So, anyways, my brother, Peter Summers, owner of Beez, Hives, and Honey in Salt Lake City, Utah. Check him out. I will tell you, you will not taste honey better than what he has to offer. You've got questions about beekeeping, you want to get into it, how do you do this, that, the other thing. He's a great resource. He's written a lot of different papers and blogs and things like that. So he'd be more than happy to help you out. And also, if you stop into his shop in your Salt Lake City, he has this indoor beehive. Like the bees fly in from outside into this wall, and you can see them. You can. It's all glass, and you can see them building their hive and doing all the stuff bees do. So listen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. Hope you like the show. If you do like it, love you to like it, share it. Love comments as well, ratings. They really help me get the show out there. We're on YouTube if you want to see our faces. I don't know if I recommend that, but we're also anywhere you can find podcasts. Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, you name it. We're there. Check us out. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, be great.